Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
Marshall, what do you remember about the birth of your daughters?
It's like little snippets of a movie. Mm-hmm. I don't remember them in their totality at all. Just little moments, really. And more than anything, because both our daughters, their sex was a surprise when they were born. The absolute joy I felt when they were both born and that we had girls.
Oh, that's awesome. Our guest today is Kandice Shiell, and she had a baby during COVID. Her fourth child. And she's here today to tell us about her experience and what that was like.
Yeah, this interview flies by for me so fast. And Kandice takes us very candidly right into the hospital room for the birth of her baby during the pandemic.
So here she is, Kandice Shiell.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Do you enjoy Bonn Park podcast?
If so, we would really appreciate it if you
Leave a review,
like, rate, subscribe, but most importantly,
share directly from the platforms
with your family and friends. That's the best way to get the word out to everybody, and more people will get to see our show that way. So click those like buttons and share our show. Thank you.
Thanks.
On with the show. This is it. Bonn Park is supported by Crowsfoot Smokehouse. There's something to be said about tradition, quality, and community. Located in the small farming town of Conestoga, Crowsfoot Smokehouse stands on what is known to be one of the oldest venues in the region. Settled by Mennonites and German immigrants in the 1820s, the site has had a centuries-long tradition of serving great food in a comfortable and welcoming atmosphere. From Ontario pork schnitzel, cabbage rolls, and Nashville hot chicken to mouth-watering smokehouse platters, brisket, and bourbon pecan pie, Crowsfoot Smokehouse's locally sourced menu combines the community's rich German culture with classic Southern-style smokehouse barbecue. Crowsfoot Smokehouse also has an on-site general store stocked with a wide selection of locally made products and artisanal goods, eco-friendly cleaning products, as well as your daily essentials like local eggs and milk. Visit crowsfootsmokehouse.ca or follow them on Instagram and Facebook. Guten Appetit! We are supported by SRJ Plumbing. Whether you need emergency plumbing help, a pipe fix, or some new fixtures, SRJ Plumbing has you covered. Serving Waterloo Region, Cambridge, Guelph, and surrounding areas, SRJ Plumbing is fast, reliable, and affordable. They've got more than 20 years of experience, and there's no problem they haven't been able to fix. SRJ Plumbing also sells and services water softeners, reverse osmosis systems, carbon filters, iron filters, and basically whatever your home needs. For 24-hour emergency service, to get a free quote, or if you have questions or special requests, drop them a line at simon@srjplumbing.ca. This is a testimonial from Marshall.
I recently hired SRJ Plumbing to come fix a sink in my house. Simon was just so friendly and efficient, and I give them a 5-star rating. I would highly recommend them to anybody.
We are supported by Fenego, a Canadian distributor of high-quality, zero-waste lifestyle products based in Waterloo. In a takeout world, many of us are overrun by plastic containers, but meals need not create excess litter. Sourcing the latest and most innovative products, Fenego specializes in reusable products like reusable straws and water bottles, bento boxes, bamboo utensil sets, and more. And their store warehouse is powered entirely by green electricity. They even encourage customers to use what they have at home before purchasing anything new. But when you want to make your kitchen more eco-friendly, Fenego can help you find what you need to make greener choices. Check out their store at 105 Lexington Road in Waterloo and at fenego.com, or follow them on Instagram and Facebook. Bonn Park is supported by Winnie's Gluten-Free Kitchen in Belmont Village. Don't let dietary restrictions keep you from enjoying delicious flavors. Winnie's is a certified gluten-free and dedicated nut-free facility. They've got loads of pre-made frozen meals, pierogies, pot pies, lasagna so delicious the whole family can enjoy. And don't forget dessert, like classic butter tarts, cinnamon buns, eclairs, cannoli, and much more. I like the lemon squares myself. Whether you need gluten-free staples like bagels, bread, and ready-to-go hand-pied lunches like their puff pastry foldovers, pizza, or full meals like sweet and sour chicken, fajita casserole, and jerk chicken, Winnie's will keep you well fed. Check out their scrumptious offerings at winniesglutenfree.com and follow them on social media. I always say I didn't choose the gluten-free life, it chose me, and I'm very grateful for Winnie's in Belmont Village. don't know. I just feel like disconnected.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I noticed the conversations with the people who work at Sarah, between Sarah's to be really kind of like, hey, Ann, right? How you doing? Well, you know. Mm-hmm. Like, they used to be always a bit more.
I asked Rita at Starbucks yesterday. I said, how's it going? You know, Rita. And she's like, some days it's good. And some days, honestly, most of us go home and cry. Yeah. And she wasn't kidding.
Well, I think we're all feeling that. Like I said to Chris just before coming here, like, it's depressing. Like, it's just to the point that, like, before we were like, okay, well, we're doing this for a reason. Yeah. And now it's like what's
not in
the
sight
reason
anymore.
Yeah. Like, it's now been a year. Mm-hmm. Like, we're all over it.
I've been having this ongoing conversation with myself about our podcast and how, is the pandemic helping us, or could it be something more, and is it hurting us? And I keep trying to think as to which it could be.
Kandice Shiell, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Are you excited to be here?
A little bit nervous.
Not nervous? Yeah, nervous.
Totally nervous.
So I know you two are neighbors, and you have kids that play together. But how did you first meet?
Well, we weren't actually. Well, we were neighbors in the sense that you and I were neighbors, not next door. We actually moved closer to Kandice. Our daughters are best friends till the end, forever,
Ever.
Ride or die, day ones, all of those sayings. I think I met you before this, but my earliest memory is out on Zermatt. There's another little girl on the street that Hannah, your daughter, knew. And it was after 9 p.m. and it was dark. And you were like, hey, I'm Hannah's mom. They want to come sleep over at my house. Is that cool with you? And I was like looking at you like, is she normal? And you're like, I'm totally normal. Don't worry. And I'll send you pictures when we get there and you can have my text. And I was like, and Summer was like, please, please, please. It's like, this feels right. So I think it's okay. And we can't keep them apart since.
Every weekend, together.
Yeah.
Yep.
So prior to you moving onto this street, you two connected in the neighborhood, even though you were several blocks apart.
In our famous neighborhood.
Yeah.
What is your first memory?
I think actually, no. The very, very first memory is Summer's birthday party. I don't remember what birthday it was.
It had to be little.
It was probably kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And Hannah got an invite. And we completely forgot it. And so then I remember you texting me and saying, is Hannah coming? And I was like, oh no.
Right.
She's at dance.
Oh no.
and I just remember feeling horrible and thinking, they're never going to invite Hannah back.
I don't even think I remember this conversation at all.
Yeah, it was bad. And we dropped off a little gift like the next day, I think it was. And I was like, I promise we're not horrible. And I think that was probably the first. But I do remember the sleepover.
And I think Hannah's one of those kids that needs one of those t-shirts that you see online that are like, I have dance. That's all the shirt says. Hannah dances. It's been tough over the last year, but she dances. Actually, that's not as bad as we invited a family. We invited Justina's friend Talia. Hi, Talia, if you're out there, to her birthday party, and they came a weekend early. It was a sleepover, and she was like in her jammies with the gift, and they were a week early. And the mom's like, "What? We were not ready." I think I was like putting food in my mouth at the door. Like, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's hard to keep track of the kids' social lives when things are normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're a mom of 4.
Yes.
Why? I'm just kidding. I love all your kids.
Which I think a lot of people think of as a big family these days.
I do.
Maybe not 30 years ago or 40 years ago, but and you had a baby during the pandemic.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to hear all about that.
All right.
You're also a full-time student.
Part-time student.
Sorry, part-time student.
Yep.
I'm going to reword it. You're also a part-time student working to become a teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm slowly getting there, but I'm getting there. So I was pregnant. I was due to have the baby in April, and then the pandemic hit, and it kind of got crazy. We were going through St. Jacob's midwifery, which we had done for all the previous kids, and nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew how to handle it. So we were all just kind of like taking it one appointment at a time.
Lots of wait and see. Let's just, don't worry about that yet.
Exactly.
Exit strategy later, literally.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I would just remember like almost every day getting a new email from the midwives. Like, this is what we're doing today. It might change tomorrow. Just be ready. So I remember I also had a few complications in my pregnancy. So I was also going and getting ultrasounds quite regularly. So it was mostly at the ultrasounds that I noticed the biggest difference at first, because at that point I was only seeing the midwives every 3 weeks, I think. So when I was going to the ultrasounds, it was like only one person allowed in. My husband wasn't allowed to join me. Like all of the sonogrammers were wearing masks and stuff. We weren't required at that time.
I'm just thinking back. I mean, not to interrupt your story, but I went for blood like that week before, like the March break, went for blood work.
Yeah.
And everyone working inside the Life Lab was wearing like the clear shield and a mask, gloves. And I just said to the intake lady, like, you know something I don't, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, ha, ha, ha. And they're like, we're required by law to wear these at this point. And I was like, oh my gosh, she doesn't think this is funny.
It was it was
really
jarring
bizarre.
at first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and then I remember my midwife saying, okay, at your next appointment, pull up, don't come in, call us, and we will do like a initial screening. And so I was like, okay. So I called and they're like, okay, have you been out of the country? Like all the typical questions that they ask. And I was like, no. And they're like, okay, you can come in, take off your shoes, sanitize, put a mask on. And at that time they were using like the Mennonite ladies were making masks for them. So they had like a clean mask area and a dirty mask area. So you took a mask and then you came in and it was like no seating areas or anything. And you walked into your room and the midwives were like full gowns, masks, gloves. And I was like, this is weird.
Twilight Zone.
This doesn't feel like what you expect from a midwife clinic, which is that very personable, like you can sit for an hour and talk to them. And it was weird. Like I cried. I was like, this doesn't feel right. And so, again, it was like, we can't touch you. So they had to wear gloves. Like they couldn't do a lot of things that they would typically do. So that was like right at the beginning. And then it kept just getting worse. Like my appointments were canceled. Well, you're fine. We'll see you in another week. Let's just wait. And then it got to the point that I was like, Chris, I don't know if I have this baby now, what am I supposed to do? Like, where am I supposed to go? Because at that point, home birth was out of the question.
Right.
Like I had already had the complications and stuff, which initially home birth was our plan because my Alice, my third one, was at home. And they're like, no, it's better to just be at the hospital. And I was like, okay. So then I talked to them and I said, like, I feel like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to expect. What's the hospital like at this point? Like,
just make me feel better about this.
Scary, right?
Yeah,
like it was
right.
COVID people were at the hospital and I didn't understand, like, if I went to the hospital, was I going to get it? Was my baby going to get it? What was I supposed to do? So they were pretty good at reassuring me as much as they could because they didn't know either.
Right.
So then all of a sudden it changed that Chris couldn't come to my appointments anymore. So I was by myself for all of that. So my water broke at home and like complete panic. Like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to do. And I called them and they were like, okay, just go to the hospital.
As many times as I've walked into the emergency room, no offense to all the healthcare workers and everybody who's working really hard, there's never somebody just right there who's like, how can we help you today?
Actually, it wasn't the emergency room. I lied. It was the main building.
Okay.
So there's
usually somebody there.
Yes, there was. There was actually a security guard who happened to be related to Chris, which was
perfect.
funny. So we had a good conversation. And then we got brought up to the maternity ward. And once we got there, it was Chris had to stay out and wait. He couldn't come in with me. So I was like, okay, like how long is this going to last? Like, am I going to have the baby without him? Because at this point there was talk of hospitals not allowing spouses in.
Yeah. No, or a support person.
No. Right. Yeah. So I think in Toronto at that point, they were like, nobody was allowed.
Wild.
So I was like terrified. Like, I'm like, this is baby number 4. I'm fine. I can do it on my own.
Yeah, but I would prefer not to. Yeah, I'd prefer not to.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I go in and again, midwife is like full, like gown, gloves, mask, shield, And she's like, okay, let's just hook you up. Let's see what's happening. Have you been having contractions? At this point, I hadn't been. And so I was like, I feel like I shouldn't even be here. Like, typically you're
let me
at
go
home, like, getting into it. And then you go to the hospital, but they wanted me right there right away. So I was like, okay. So she checked me. At that point, there was 2 of us in the triage, and there's kind of like space for probably 6 or 8 people, but they were like spacing people out really good at that point. So I'm waiting, and I'm like, is Chris going to be able to come in? She's like, no, he can't come until you get a room. I'm like, when will that happen? She's like, well, once you start having contractions and we know like this is real labor, then you can go. I'm like, okay.
And imagine what he's thinking on the other side, like, where's my wife? How's my baby?
Yeah. And he's like, so I'm texting him,
good.
like, I'm okay. Like, everything's fine. Nothing's really happening. It's so eerie in here. Like, there was no nurses, none of that sort of buzz
Bustle,
that's usually happening in the maternity ward, right? And so I said to Chris, like, she says you can come in once we get a room. I don't know how long that'll be. So, and I can tell, like, Janessa is my midwife, amazing. She's been my midwife through all of my babies. And she's like, this isn't happening fast enough. And I'm like, why does it need to be fast? And she's like, we've got to get people in and out. And I'm like,
I read about that. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, like, we need to get this started because they don't want you to come and go. You can't walk the halls like you would typically do to get going. So she's like, I think I'm going to get an OB in to see what our next step is. And I'm like, okay. And then that typically means you're passing transfer of care to from the midwives to an OB, which I don't like. Like, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and this has been your experience up until this point.
Right.
This is how you do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right, because they don't work together. It's one or the other.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, and they're very, very different. Like, an OB is very different than a midwife. And I've had experiences with Hannah, actually, with an OB, and it wasn't great.
And am I right? Is that why it's an attractive idea to go with a midwife? Along with
it's a very personal experience.
And the more kind of cold clinical parts
Absolutely.
of the environment of a hospital. Yeah.
Like, Rachel, my midwife once grabbed my knee and she was like, looked me in the eyes because she could see I was getting uncomfortable and big and stressed out. And she's like, how's your sex life? You getting any? They'll just ask you anything, know?
Yeah. And they're really like, you're a person to them. It's not that you're just like another patient to get in and out. Like, you have a connection with them for sure. So I was like, okay, not happy about it, but I'm like, sure, we'll get the OB in and see what happens. At this point, Chris still has no idea. He's still waiting. And so
can't get himself a coffee. Can't.
Yeah, because at that point, you're not even allowed to go down to the main area of the hospital that has like the Tim Hortons and stuff. He has to stay there. There's no in and out privileges at all. So then so the OB comes in, says, okay, what's happening? And I said, like, talk to Janessa, whatever. And they decided that they would put me on Pitocin. Pitocin?
Yeah, I've been on that.
I think Pitocin.
For Justina. Yeah. To get things moving.
Yeah.
In a very different kind of way. It's painful.
Yeah. I had never experienced it before. So they were like, okay, we're going to hook you up to that, which means you get a room. Yay.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, finally things are going to happen. At this point, I'm like just nervous. I'm like, why are we rushing? And you always hear like when you rush labor and delivery, things happen. That's when the complications happen. And I was just like, please no C-section. I don't want to have a C-section. So then they get me hooked up. Actually they didn't hook me up there. They gave us a room and like, it was totally normal in the maternity ward. There's nurses there, not very many, but there was nurses there. Everything felt exactly like it should.
So it felt more normal once you had that room. Yeah.
And I was given one nurse, I think it was just one nurse. And she came in and she was very, very good. Said like, you can take your masks off if I'm not here. Like once I leave the room, then you can, because Chris was full mask at this point too.
And you had to wear a mask?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then they hooked me up to the Pitocin, and then things just started happening.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about your breathing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're sucking it in while you're breathing and...
And I was terrified of that. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah,
I'm not
for
going to be able
sure.
to do this with a mask on. And Chris was laughing. He's like, they don't even know you. Like, you're not going to wear a mask for this whole thing. And he's like, you're going to have that thing ripped off and thrown across the room. I didn't. I did the whole thing with a mask on. but yeah.
And also, so when the plan is to have a midwife and a birth at home, once you find yourself in that situation, is it all of a sudden they're talking to you about an epidural, for example, that wasn't part of the plan to begin with? Or do you still have these freedoms to say, no, we're going through with this as natural as possible?
Yeah. Didn't want to have an epidural. Just wanted it to be as least invasive as I could, but from the nurses and doctors. So that's what we did. So they gave me the Pitocin, started having contractions right away, and the baby was born 3 hours later.
Labor isn't easy, but that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the hours for each kid?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Hannah was at 8:07 and Everett was at 10:15. Alice was at 7 in the morning. And then Josephine was at 10 at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like give or take a few, but yeah, it was actually surprisingly good. Like I said, I had to wear the mask the whole time. Chris had to wear the mask the whole time. By the time Josephine was born, I had a new OB who came in, and he was just like, okay, let's do this. And caught the baby. They gave baby right to me, like least touch as they could. All of her exams and stuff were done on me so that they didn't have to touch. If they needed, like when she was face down on me, they said, can you move her? So then they moved.
Where normally they're just flinging that baby everywhere.
So I moved her. They checked. Like everything was very hands off, which was great, which is what I wanted. And then they checked on me once or twice, and I requested to go home early. So I was home by 2:00 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and it's a revolving door. They want you out of there as fast as possible. How long would they have let you stay, do you know?
They wanted me to stay for, I think it was 12 hours, only because she was a big baby. She was 11, I think it was. I don't know why I forget that. 8'11". And so there was like a blood sugar test that she had to pass. And I was like, she's fine. She's good. Let's just go home.
Out of here, right?
It was just eerie, right? Like it was just weird to have a baby in the hospital knowing that there was like COVID patients there.
Well, what I want to ask you about that is, I would say that the birth of both my daughters is the only time in my life where when that's happening, it really feels like time stands still. I'm not thinking about anything else going on in the world.
Right.
I'm just truly present in that moment. And I can't think of anything else that plays out like that in life. There must be situations, or ones that are tragic and ones that are nail-biting on that. But I mean, in that case, there's this little period of time where you're just so fully immersed in that experience. Were you and your husband still able to do that in a sense? Did it feel like the world outside did not matter for that period of time? Or was there this kind of underlying reminder that you were in a strange situation?
Yeah, there was definitely that underlying, like, this is weird, and always in the back of my mind thinking about it, because like I said, my midwife was there even though she wasn't my caregiver. She was still full gear, like just sitting off to the side, still full gear. So it was like that constant reminder, like it's not normal. But I think definitely, like, as I was like feeling the contractions and going through it, like I didn't care about the pandemic at all. Like I was just like, this baby's coming and we're happy and it's cheerful. It was definitely like going back to like the reminder. My sister had to quarantine in order to watch the older kids while we were at the hospital. So I knew, like, once I get home, should my sister even see the baby? Like, are we just gonna, like, she goes on one side of the house, I go on the other? Like, there was that constant, like, what do we do, right? So I think it was always there. We knew we were leaving in a weird time for sure.
I have this is bugging me. So usually when you go to leave the hospital, your partner or support person will go get the car seat and come back. Like, how did you do that? Did you have to take it in with you?
Yep.
So you had to be that prepared.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's one thing I didn't know. So that was a question I asked the midwives. Like, what happens when we go to the hospital? Do we leave the car seat? Do we bring it in? What do we do? And then she said, bring everything that you will need in, because you are not allowed to leave until you're leaving with the baby.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
And was your midwife communicating with you what the experience was like for her? And because they must be emotionally highly invested in every one of these experiences. I know they move on to the next person.
Yeah.
But for the time, they must be fully immersed in it.
I think they're pretty chill because this is like what they do all the time. But what did you?
Yeah, I think that there was definitely times that they, like, you could tell it was wearing them out. Like, they just didn't know. And things were changing so quickly at that point because nobody knew what to do. So there was times that they were like just exhausted from it, I think. But they never really talked a lot about it. I think because it was so unknown. But yeah.
I guess their focus is on you too and your well-being. It's
sure.
it's not about them.
Yeah.
Right. Can you talk a little bit more about that relationship with a midwife? Is it something where so I heard a funeral director recently speak to me about how, somebody comes into their life in a very difficult time, and within 4 days they kind of everything's done, and now they have a new client, but it can be a very draining experience for 4 days. And you can make an incredible bond and relationship with that person. What's the relationship like with a midwife over so many months? Or when does it even start with a midwife? Like right from pregnancy?
Yeah. So you get a midwife, like the second you get a positive pregnancy test, you need to be calling midwives because they're in such high demand, but there are not very many of them. So as soon as you get a positive pregnancy test, you call, and then you get like selected by your midwives. Because I had already had 3 kids with Janessa, she was quick to scoop me up. And then I think it's like 4 months along is the first appointment, maybe even 6. And then you're like, I think it's 4 months. And then every month. And then as you get closer to your due date, you're like once a week kind of thing. And then they also take care of you afterwards.
Yeah, they usually come to your home.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
Another thing that was super weird.
I was so grateful for when my midwives came to her, because even though I switched to a OB, because I had 2 emergency C-sections, when you switch back to your midwife, right?
Yeah.
And when they came to check things out and give me some advice afterwards, like that was golden time for me.
Yeah, amazing. And it was definitely different. They came and checked on me once through they're supposed to take care of you 6 weeks postpartum, I think it is. And usually they see you like the day after the baby's born if you're out of the hospital, and then every other day for the first week, and then once a week after that or something. I don't remember exactly. But they only came once. And I remember she called me before she got to the house, Janessa, and she's like, okay, I'm here. Make sure your kids, your husband, everybody is downstairs. They're not allowed around. And I'll do your like initial exam from the phone, and then I'll come in, do a quick check, and then leave. Like, okay. So she, when she got into the driveway, she called me and she's like, okay, whatever. And then she's like, I'll be in a couple of minutes. I'm like, okay, just come on in. And she came in and like startled me because she was, again, full gear. Like pants on, like everything. And I was like, oh, you had to get like fully dressed. And she's like, yeah, I was standing in your driveway doing this. She's like, people
I wish I would have seen that from over
think
here.
Like, what's happening in that house? Because it's weird, right? So, and then they usually like weigh the baby. I think I have a picture of Josephine in the like baby bag.
I was just thinking when I was remembering them coming over, that baby bag with the scale thing, I was like, that's how you do it. You don't put them on one of those metal cold taco shell scales, the one at the doctor's office for babies. They put them in this beautiful piece of cloth. Did you guys have midwives? No, because you have great questions.
I have a lot more questions about midwives.
So they've got this like basically a scarf, like a bag, and they've got one of those like hook, like like a luggage weight, and that's how they weigh a baby, and it's so much more gentle.
And so that bag they actually let us keep for the duration because they couldn't take it back.
It's like the one the storks carry.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah.
And so it had to stay at our house, and then she came in with like Tupperware bins of stuff. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, I've had 3 kids at this point. Like, you don't normally have, they have to have bins that they can wipe everything down. Everything has to be like sealed so they can go to the next person. So I think most of my appointment while she was at my house was her sanitizing the stuff afterwards.
And they're so busy anyway, like you said, because they're in high demand and there's so few of them.
For sure.
Like, this must have really cut into their appointment time.
Yeah.
I imagine a key role for midwives in your home is something like, if you're having challenges with breastfeeding, a midwife could be very helpful there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, most moms are alone in that situation.
For sure.
And I'm so curious about the midwife life. Is it, are these people who have some degree of medical background?
Oh, yeah.
And somewhere along the path, they decided, I don't want to work in a hospital. I don't want to work in a clinic. I would like to do this. And this is a full-time job.
But this is like there's special schooling for this, for midwifery.
For midwifery.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty much nursing school. And then there's like a branch off that they then like do midwifery.
And for the most part, their career exists in the realm of people's homes and spaces, but not a lot of time in hospitals and clinics and that rather.
Well, they have their own clinic. It's like a doctor's office that you go to, and that's where you would go for your regular appointments. But sort of after baby's born, then they come to you.
Yeah. And actually midwives quite, like, I would say the majority, I don't know the exact statistics, they are in hospital births. I think I just saw them post on Instagram that December had 32 births and 23 of them were in hospital.
Right.
Are they also an alternative to an OBGYN in terms of late in the pregnancy, they'll check the position of the baby?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
They do all that stuff, and you're not standing in a lineup at a clinic waiting for your turn. And
No, they'll send you for your ultrasound.
To find out the OBGYN is actually at the hospital.
Yeah.
Delivering a baby.
That, I've been there.
Yeah. So like, I remember my sister going through an OBGYN, and she would get a phone call like, your doctor is 2 hours behind, so don't come yet. And then she'd go like 2 hours later and they'd still be behind. That's never happened with the midwife.
No.
Because so you have your primary midwife, and then you will have a secondary, and you have a third. So you have 3 midwives that you rotate through, and they're usually 2 of them are at your birth. And then the third one is just kind of if the first one can't. And
unlike an OBGYN, a midwife can have a conversation with you as in, I've been through this experience before, and I've been through this, and I've seen that. They can talk to you about those things, so that you can gain this kind of knowledge in a much more personal way. Yeah. Right. It's not just we're only talking about you right now at this moment.
Right. Yeah. It's really great.
I just felt lightheaded because I was having a memory of getting a stretch and sweep by my midwife. That is some shit you don't ever want to go through.
It's pretty intense.
That is like, I think it's thumb and 2 pointy finger, and what's the FU finger called? Pointy finger and the other finger?
Index. Yeah.
Index. Yeah.
This isn't index?
Oh, I don't know.
Middle
finger.
Middle finger.
So I think it's thumb, index and middle finger. And they just get that in as far as they can and try to get around the cervix and sweep around it.
Yeah.
It was actually there's few things I've had that are more painful than that, but it was the pressure of them trying to dig. It was like against the bone, trying to dig in. Oh man!
So I'm getting lightheaded now.
Are you actually?
No.
It was something else. Yeah. I don't think it did anything either.
I had that with all of the kids.
Did you?
Yeah. It worked every time.
It worked every time.
Yeah.
Or I remember with both the birth of both daughters, how the OBGYN comes in really at the very last minute, almost like they're a celebrity. They come in, do their thing. Yeah. Baby comes out, does maybe an episiotomy, is there for the cord cutting, and then within a second they're gone. And I remember not even having a moment to say thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I remember saying thank you to mine. And I did have my OB, and I'll never say this word right in my life, anesthesiologist. Yeah. Did I get it?
You did, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. Somebody in a meeting today meant to say congregate, and they said conjugate, and nobody caught it. And I was like, aren't we going to talk about this? Yeah. It's so hard not to laugh. So the 2 of them had a fight.
Oh no.
In the operating room, and like somebody threw gloves in the garbage and stormed out, and it was about timing. They couldn't sync their timing with all the people that they had to. But I was lying there like in labor waiting for drugs and C-section on the table, and they were fighting.
Oh No.
In the weeks following you bringing your baby home, you must have felt like you had a lot of limitations and restrictions on your freedom of where, not that you were going to head out to the mall right away or anything, but I mean, I guess the weather started getting warmer.
Yeah.
And you were looking forward to that. But there must have been things where you had to be always thinking. I remember somebody saying to me who had a baby last year, how just going to like Laurel Creek Conservation, they were always thinking, there's probably a lot of people there today, things they wouldn't be thinking about otherwise. And they often made the choice to stay home with baby rather than go out.
Sure.
So how did those weeks and months look? Let's talk about
it was
May, June.
Yeah, it was pretty lonely, actually. Like, even though our house is busy all of the time and we have, like, my husband's working from home, we were all there. Like, my mom with the other 3 kids had always come and spent at least a week, sometimes 2 weeks with us to take care of the baby, take care of me, let me have rest when I needed it, whatever. And she couldn't, right? Like, we were really strict at that point about, like, who we could see and stuff.
You were supposed to be.
Yeah. Like,
how long was it before your mom could come? It was quite some time.
So she didn't come until July.
Yeah, that's
I think it was. Like, we had FaceTime, obviously. We could talk like that, but it's not the same. So it was hard. Chris had some time off, obviously. And so in one sense, we were like, this is kind of nice. Like, we didn't have hospital visitors and stuff like that, which was nice. I mean, we weren't there long enough, but, and then we didn't have like everybody coming to our house to visit. But it was definitely lonely. We were like, I feel like she's missing out. I mean, she doesn't know the difference, but the other kids all got to like meet their great grandparents.
Yeah.
She still hasn't met her great grandparents.
Oh, that's so
So
sad.
it's definitely like, and again, like, we didn't go anywhere. We would go for walks around the neighborhood and stuff, but it was always like cover her up, put blankets on her. And it was different for sure.
And we're two doors down, and Summer couldn't meet her best friend's new sister for months, right?
Yeah.
Kind of wild.
It was.
And you can't show her off. That's part of the fun,
For
right?
sure. Yeah, she spent like however many months in pajamas because I'm like, why?
Why bother?
What's the point of getting her dressed?
All these cute outfits that you can't use.
Yeah.
I remember seeing, you just said you went out walking, and I remember seeing you out walking recently after she was born, and I was like, go Kandice.
Like, well, there was nothing else to do.
There's nothing else
we
to
were like,
do, yeah.
let's go for a walk.
You already finished Netflix in the first month, right?
Yeah.
And you are currently in Wilfrid Laurier University's
Yes.
Teachers Bachelor of Education program.
I'm actually just doing an English degree right now.
Okay.
Yeah, with hopes to be in teachers to college soon.
Yeah. So how are you balancing that? Like,
Barely.
okay.
So like we do everything
It's
with
a
our kids are
struggle.
small. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, especially because the kids are home, right? So it's definitely hard.
So 3 in online school. Chris is working from home.
Yep.
3 young ones. Like Hannah, your oldest, can handle herself, but the other 2 are younger. They need constant help. I'm sure Alice needs help with even just the tech.
Yeah.
Sometimes babies barfing all over you.
Yep.
And you have assignments due.
Yep. Yeah, that's my life right now. So I
If anyone wants to drop coffee off,
everything is done at 2:00 in the morning.
I bet.
Like, yeah.
So baby's crawling, pulling herself up on the couch kind of thing. And
she's almost walking.
Getting
isn't
ready for walking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a go. The 4th one just has to keep up with everybody, right? So,
and she's flipping gorgeous. You should see.
she's super cute.
If
you could take Hannah, because you've met Hannah Marshall, and just shrink her down into a baby size, that's what we're looking at here. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, she really is.
Cute.
So the Mommy and Me programs and
They're all done online.
everything. Are you doing some?
We did one today.
Oh,
The
good.
Baby and Me through the Early Years Center. It's totally weird. Like, is she getting anything from it? I have no idea. But it's a fun break. I get to speak to other moms. Some dads actually join too. But yeah, it's definitely weird because we used to do like the Eric Traplin concerts and the Baby and Me classes in the library and all of those things. And now everything is just done online, and she's starting to walk and stuff. So she's like gone, and I'm just sitting there watching them sing songs and bounce their babies, and she's playing somewhere else.
Oh
so.
man.
Over the span of 4 children now, do you feel like you are a different kind of parent with each kid? Do you think like for the first one, I was this kind of parent. Boy, I had a lot more energy. I was not as strong for the second one. Do you almost kind of, can you see it like chapters where you think, oh, I'm a very different kind of parent now to where I was 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. Like, well, I was 23 when Hannah was born, which I was young, nothing hurt. I could do everything. And now I'm 36. And so that just in itself is a big difference. I'm definitely like, she'll be fine. She ate something off the floor. It's okay.
Good for the immune system.
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, I was pretty lenient with Hannah. She was like, I was kind of a confident parent right away. I always wanted to be a mom. I knew I was going to be a mom. So I think I've always kind of had the same like broad idea of how I was going to raise the kids, but it definitely has evolved a little bit, I think.
And why are you pursuing that English degree as an adult learner at this time? You're as if you don't have enough already.
Do you want to talk about your process? Because you were doing different things, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was working at a tech company in Waterloo, and I just hated it. Like, I went to school, Conestoga, for computer programming. I did co-op. Loved all of that. But then
Kandice is also a gaming geek, people.
Nice.
But then once I actually got into like that tech industry, worked at OpenText, I hated it. Like, I didn't like the sitting at my desk. It was lonely too. Like, there wasn't a lot of like camaraderie with everybody. And I just didn't like it. So I was like, once Alice was born, I took my mat leave, and then they dropped my position, and they were like, we don't have a job for you to come back to, because I extended that leave a little bit longer so they could do that. And I was like, I don't want to go back. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do this anymore. So I was like, I'm going to become a teacher. And then because I had only done Conestoga, I needed to get a degree, and that's what got me here. And then I started out French. It's like, I'm going to be a French immersion teacher. But I couldn't do it. It was just, the French was too hard.
Your French is definitely way better than mine, because I know you help the kids sometimes.
It was just like taking history classes, but in French. I just couldn't get it. Like, it was just too much. Yeah.
That's an amazing combo: a computer programming college education along with an arts degree. You know, that's something else to have those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even I'm kind of just at this point doing it for something to do, I guess. Like, if I become a teacher, sure. But if not, then I've got my kids that I'm happy to be at home with too. So
by the time Josephine's in school, you know, and you're looking at that next, or whatever that path and timing looks like for you, that's the perfect mom job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's my plan.
Yeah. It's foolproof.
I mean, I've raised 4 kids. I think I could be a pretty good.
I know you could. I've seen what you do at home.
How'd you do with all those winters you had to endure as a parent? Winter can beat you down as a parent with young children at home.
Yep.
I used to tie the kids' sled like around my waist and haul it around the neighborhood, because I was so bored and I needed to move around with them.
I think even when you do your best in that way to make the most of it,
it's never your best.
It's still a huge endurance test.
Yeah.
So anyways, how did you do through that's several winters you would have gone through with young children. Yeah. Yeah.
And none of my kids are cold babies. They don't like it at all. We're a summer family through and through. So a lot of like fort building and movie watching and crafts, and we do lots of board games, and we do like a lot of that kind of stuff. We toboggan and stuff, but skate. But it's a lot of like just being
hunkering down.
Yeah, and just kind of having fun together, whatever we can muster up.
And you have time to enjoy video games?
We do occasionally. Yeah. I don't have a ton of time, obviously.
Like what systems? I'm thinking like games like Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo.
So you guys can geek out. They have VR also.
Yeah, I was gonna say Oculus Rift and Oculus.
Yeah.
Quest has these huge immersive games that you can just truly get lost in.
Yeah.
Like as in the whole world goes away when you go into those games.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing you find yourself able to kind of go into and just...
So I don't anymore really play video games. Like if I get a chance, it's like Animal Crossing or Zelda on the Switch. We used to be huge World of Warcraft players. We don't have time for that anymore. Like we just can't with the kids. And then we don't have computers and stuff anymore like we used to. But like my son now is really into gaming. He's an Xbox player. So he plays a lot of like the Roblox and Call of Duty, and what else does he play? Fortnite, those kinds of games.
Yeah, those really cinematic kind of games.
So every once in a while we'll get on with him and play, and we'll have like a big, like Hannah has a Switch and my husband does, I do. So we'll get on and play like Fortnite or that car one, Rocket League. We'll play those kinds of games together.
I think those games like what Hannah might play on the Switch, those are big, beautiful stories with incredible music. I see that as someone would argue it's not like reading, but it's immersing yourself in a whole other world of fantasy.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's really good for them.
Yeah. We'll just keep saying it's good for them because Everett's always like, it's good that I do this and I don't read.
Like, honestly, right now, I think all bets are off.
Yeah.
I gave up on screen time a while ago. I know you and I had a pact that we were going to say, okay, the girls have to have their screens off at these hours, and this is going to be the deadline, and we're going to have this like sit down conversation with them. And then the rules change, and we were like, we can't.
We're going to start that Monday. Right, and Monday came and went. And
I texted you like Wednesday. I was like, did you do it? Because I forgot.
I didn't.
The years in between the kids, how is that working in terms of Sarah and I, for example, have something similar happening. I have an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old. You have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. Yeah. And so I know a bit about what that looks like.
Yeah.
How is that for you, the way your kids are spaced out?
So it's nice. Like Hannah's 12 and then Josephine's obviously 9 months. She's a huge help. Like it's really nice to just say like, I need a break, Hannah. Can you just watch her for a second? And I'll go like eat a chocolate bar in my closet or something because I need it.
Just cry for a second and then get back out there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really nice. On one hand though, I kind of wish they were all a little closer. So Hannah's 10, Hannah's 12, Everett's 10, Alice is 5, and then Josephine's 9. So there's or 9 months. There's quite a few years in between. Like I wish they were a little bit closer so they could like occupy themselves a little bit more, because I find I'm always the one that's like, let's do this together. Let's. So
when you have two, Sarah and I have talked about this, how sometimes you can see how the younger child grows up in the older child's world.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Hannah was just explaining this to Summer. Hannah just said to Summer this week, you know, it's too bad you're the youngest in your family because you don't get to do all the fun stuff that I get to do with my family. Yeah. And she's right, actually. Because Summer is living in Justina's older world and in our knowledge of that. Sorry, Marshall, cutting you off.
We watched the movie Office Space a little while ago.
Oh, that's a good movie.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. There's some swearing in there I don't like. For the 14, I was thinking of the 14-year-old, not the 18-year-old.
Right.
And my wife Sylvia was like, oh, please. They've heard that all before.
You're worried about the swearing. You should worry about the gang scene where they're beating the living daylights out of the printer.
that too. But what I'm pointing at here is how when Mason was 14, I wouldn't have pulled Office Space out.
Right. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
The innocence is still there.
Yeah. But at this point, I'm like, well, this is a really funny movie. I think we'll all really enjoy this. But my concerns are, the 14-year-old's going to have to listen to a whole pile of swearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely happens. Like Hannah is a dancer and has danced forever. And so now that she's 12, some of her costumes are getting a little bit more risque and stuff. But Alice is coming out wearing the exact same thing. I'm like, yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Looking good, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Hannah, you're like, my baby.
When Hannah was that little, I was like, no, go put a shirt on.
Yeah.
And her belly was showing. And Alice is like, look at me, Mom. I'm like, yeah, that's fine for online learning. Yeah.
Imagine that the teachers all the teachers teaching online, they're of that age, like the 5, 6. They're probably seeing quite a few Superman costumes and Spider-Man onesies. And yeah, I think so.
I don't know how the teachers are doing it right now. Like with Alice's class, all the time it's like, hey, Miss P, look at this, look at this. My dog just pooed on the back. Like it's just constant, and like the teacher's just like, okay. I'm just going to mute. I'm
I had-
sure she's drinking.
Yeah, no kidding, right? The coffee mug. I actually saw a meme that showed a teacher with a coffee mug, like number one teacher. And it said, remember teachers, blow on your vodka so they think it's tea.
For sure.
Like blowing on the mug.
People talk a lot about how I've seen where babies are born on the news, and they show it, and they ask the parent in the moment about this historical time, having a baby in a pandemic, and the parents are just exhausted. I remember the New Year's babies in Toronto. I said, what are you going to tell people, tell your child 20 years from now? And they're just, I don't know. Like, did you, when you were going through your childbirth and that, and then going home, did it feel like you were truly living in this incredibly surreal, special time? And do you think that, imagine 10, 20 years from now, you'll look back and go, wow, that was really something, having a baby during the pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. I think because I was kind of like in the pandemic and not in the pandemic, it's sort of like even more surreal for me because I experienced both, like not in that same pregnancy. So I think it's definitely, I've written a lot down so that she can remember and hear about it later and just be like, it was a weird time and we did our best and hopefully you're normal.
Hey all, thanks for meeting us in Bonn Park. Please like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform that you're listening to. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bonn Park Podcast. Original music by Alan Lung.